Julian Richards. I am a director and sales agent. And this year in Fantasporto, I am being sort of presented with a career award and a retrospective of my work as a director and also as a sales agent. And that involves the screening of 8 films that I've directed and 10 films that I've represented as a sales agent.
Amazing. So give me a few names of them. So we want to know which one the...
Yeah, I mean the films I've directed, the first film was 1997 and it was a sort of an occult horror thriller called Darklands. And this actually was my debut feature, and the very first festival that I screened it in was Fantasporto. I ended up winning 4 awards at the festival. I got the Critics Award for Best Film, the Méliès d'Argent for Best European Fantasy Film. I got Best Screenplay and an Originality Award, which was for me an amazing experience because when you've made your first film, you're very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And you're hoping, you want to be loved, you want to be accepted, you want to have a career. To start off at Fantasporto and come away with that kind of recognition was key, really, to giving me the momentum and the confidence that I needed to continuing what is a very difficult career. And also, I established a very strong relationship with the festival and with the festival directors, Mario and Beatrice. One of the things that they do here is that when you win an award, then you're invited back the following year to be on the jury. So I came back in '98, I was on the jury, and then I've kept on coming back. So this is now my 18th time to Fantasporto, and all my films, all my 9 feature films are screened here. Last year my film Daddy's Girl, for example, screened here, and also Reborn, and I got Best Director Award. So I have a sort of a strong affinity with the festival and a strong affection for the festival, and I've seen it, progress and grow as a festival. I've seen the festival go through difficult times. I've seen it bounce back, it's a big job to run a festival, and what Mario and Beatrice have done with Fantasporto is, I think in Portugal they've created a national treasure. This is one of the key genre festivals in Europe. It's one of the big 4. You'd always think of Sitges, you'd think of Brussels International Fantastic Film Festival. You used to think of Fanta Festival in Rome, but that's sort of more or less gone now, and you think of Fantasporto. So they've created something extraordinary out of nothing, and for that they need to be congratulated. And as they're getting older, they're going to be passing it on to, I believe, their son Zhao. So let's see what happens there.
And there's a lot of countries where being a first-time filmmaker, is important, and many people like to discover gems and new talents, and therefore the second movie is always a big challenge. Did you find it difficult for you making the second film?
Yes, I mean, given the success I had with Darklands, I did expect, to go into my second feature film within a year or 2. And actually, what happened was 5 years later, I was still struggling to find the finance for my second film. I remember, sort of being somewhat depressed about that. But I would still be on the festival circuit, and I would bump into Mario. And Mario would give me a wink, and he'd just say, "You stick at it. You've got talent. You'll get there." And I did. I mean, I came back with Silent Cry 6 years later, and that came about because of a change in the tax laws in the UK and how films were funded, and it was suddenly there was all this money available that wasn't previously. So I made Silent Cry, and of course Fantasporto screened it in competition. It wasn't a horror film, it was more of a thriller, so it was in the Director's Week. Mm-hmm. And in the 5 or 6 years where I wasn't working, I was developing lots of ideas and scripts. and one of those scripts was a script for the last horror movie. So when I made Silent Cry, I had a director's fee that was pretty substantial at the time, and I put all my director's fee into the last horror movie and made it as a sort of a micro-budget horror film, and brought that to Fantasporto in 2002 and 2003 actually, and won the Méliès Award for Best European Fantasy Film and the Critics Award again. So a career in film is really up and down. Sometimes, with Silent Cry and Last Horror Movie, I effectively shot them back to back. And then I had sort of 5 years before Silent Cry not directing, and then 5 years after Last Horror Movie not directing.
Thank God you had another job on the side.
Well, it was at that point when I did Last Horror Movie that I realized that it was going to be very difficult to pay the mortgage just directing, and I needed to have another string to my bow. And I was getting very frustrated with what was happening with my films in sales and distribution, so I decided to sell Last Horror Movie myself, and it worked. We were very successful with the selling of that film. So we thought, well, let's set up a sales company, Jinga Films, and it snowballed. And 12 years later, the company is very established as being a sort of a specialist in genre films. And we have over 100 films from all over the world. And
what's Jinga meaning?
Jinga.
Excuse me. Thank you. Thank you.
It's called Murphy's Law. Whenever you set up a camera, you're guaranteed that somebody's going to come in and get in the way of the shot.
Well, that makes it fun. That's the fun of it. So Jinga, what does it mean?
Jinga
Jinga
means,
bells.
Some people think it's Jenga. When you build a tower with wooden blocks and eventually it collapses. It's not that. Jinga comes from a Brazilian dance. It's a Brazilian martial art dance called capoeira.
Yeah.
And the movement in there is Jinga, and it means rhythm, balance, and stability.
Good.
Which is really sort of. I'm actually. It may not look like it, but I'm a good dancer. And I remember being told by a Brazilian that I have Jinga.
Oh,
and I thought,
compliment.
What's Jinga? And I looked it up. And that's what it means: rhythm, balance, and stability.
That's funny.
And my partner in Jinga is Brazilian, so we decided to call the company Jinga.
Speaking of trends, industry, as a sales agent, what do you see the market? How do you see the market changing, and how is the online streaming and platforms like Hulu, Netflix, etc., changing? Is that the opening the market? Is that changing the ways the financing is made?
Yeah, it's changing everything. I instead of using the word change, I would use the word disrupt.
Yeah.
The market as we know it now has been completely turned on its head, especially with genre films, because genre films, and when I say genre, often I mean horror.
Yeah.
Rarely go to the cinema. It's essentially a sort of a home entertainment.
It used to.
It used to,
Oh,
and it still does. If it's a studio film that has some big P&A behind it, then it will. But if it's an independent genre film, it's more or less straight to DVD. But the problem that we have now is DVD is dead. It's officially dead now. Everybody was talking 2 or 3 years ago that DVD is dead, but now it's officially dead. And the expectation was the whole process of renting DVDs or going to a shop and buying DVDs would be replaced by an electronic equivalent, a digital equivalent. And that digital equivalent was transactional VOD, TVOD. Bad news is TVOD is also dead. I've just seen some reports of some films that I recently had released on iTunes, on Google Play, and the value that's coming back is a fraction of what you would get from DVD.
So how can you finance then if the revenues are not coming in?
Well, the next form of digital distribution that you'd hope might work is subscription video on demand, SVOD, and that has been sort of monopolized by Netflix, and Netflix are the most disruptive company in the industry at the moment, and they make their own content. They're not really looking to buy independent genre films. If they are, they might go to top festivals like Sundance or Toronto or Venice or Berlin, and they'll pick up the award winners. But the chances of you getting picked up for worldwide rights by Netflix are very slim. And if you do, it's through some kind of weird, no rhyme or reason kind of random scenario that has occurred. I've sold films to Netflix, and it wasn't in the way that I expected to sell films to Netflix. It was always through another backdoor route.
Yeah.
And now on the horizon, you have lots of competitors coming in, Disney, HBO, etc. So the hope is that will create some competition, and from that competition, there's going to be some kind of appetite for genre films. The savior of genre on SVOD is Shudder, AMC Networks, Shudder, which is a curated channel for genre films, but they only pick up 45 films a year, so it's very competitive to get on that platform. So if you can get an SVOD deal, great, but chances are it's not going to happen. So if DVD is not working, if TVOD is not working, if SVOD is very difficult to achieve, then what are you left with? Well, there is something else on the horizon, and it's increased. It's growing in the US. It's AVOD, advertising video on demand, platforms like Tubi, and that's now where the money is for independent genre. But it's still sort of a fraction of what the DVD was previously worth.
And you, on the consumer side, you still see appetite for genre?
I think genre there'll always be an appetite for genre, because the reason why genre is strong is because it has a very loyal fan base. Genre fans don't watch a film because of who's in it. They're not driven to watch a film by the cast. They're driven by the star of the genre is the genre itself.
Yeah, the emotions.
The core ingredients of the genre. So if you make a good genre film, you will find an audience. But the problem is how do you find that audience now, and how do you monetize a film? So I find that the digital landscape is especially with SVOD, is somewhat similar to how broadcast used to be, and broadcast was always a little bit sort of snooty towards genre, and somewhat conservative. So it's tricky, and at the same time you now have a lot of episodic material on TV and SVOD, like The Living Dead, for example, where there's a lot of genre content. And the more kind of episodic genre content there is on SVOD and TV, the more it will become like drama. You'll find it harder to make independent genre films because it's all being done in TV and SVOD. So it's a very challenging time.
And also, I've done well with talent.
They've done very well.
Great script writers,
yes.
So it made the.
Yeah. I mean, there was a quote from Jane Campion I read last week. That the clever people are working for TV these days.
I kind of agree that.
And it's a pity, though, because for me, cinema is its own art form. I don't really sort of think of. I don't watch TV. I don't watch episodics. I like to go to the cinema and watch a single film, and so I feel that is, we're losing that. We're in danger of.
Except in festivals.
Well, this is why a festival like Fantasporto is important, because what it's doing is it's giving filmmakers a chance to present a film to their audience the way that it was originally intended, in a room with 300 or 400 people, and it's a unique shared experience. But it's feeling more and more antiquated. It's feeling more like a sort of like the equivalent of going to the theatre, going to the opera, going to the cinema, and that's times are changing.
Yeah, because I felt reminded yesterday watching the film and hearing someone shout loud in the audience, not in the movie.
Yeah.
And so people around started laughing. That's the ambiance that those films deserve and thrive on. It's very important, and you get that in film festivals, clearly.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Julian,
and thank you, and you'll need to remind me.
Thank you for watching filmfestivals.com.
And thank you, and thank you for watching filmfestivals.com.